Well, good evening. Let's go ahead and call our August meeting of the Iredell-Statesville Schools Board of Education to order. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. This looks like the calm before the storm. We've got a relatively small crowd tonight, but we're only within a week or so of rolling back into the new school year. As we begin our meeting, let's all take time to bow for a moment of silence to meditate in your own way about the business we have before us. So if you will, I'll ask you to bow with me. Thank you. Let's stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I've been made aware concerning the agenda tonight that we have a change under the non-consent agenda. If anyone wants to make a note, Mr. Richard Armstrong will be standing in for David Blattner on items B, C, and D under the non-consent agenda. So he will be filling in for Dr. Blattner, who had conflict for tonight's meeting. I'll ask, are there other adjustments that need to be made to the agenda before we start?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the board, I'd like to add a public comment after the public comment sections, or I'd like to make a comment after the public comment section and before the superintendent's.
So we'll call it a board member comment.
Yeah.
And we'll put that in as, I guess, item 6A to go in under the public comment section just before the superintendent comments. Any other adjustments? Okay, well, let's begin our consent agenda. We have no administrative items on here tonight, so we'll move on into personnel. I asked Dr. Lassane to discuss the acceptance of resignations, retirements, rehires, terminations, leaves of absence, the acceptance of classified and licensed personnel, and approval of administrative appointments. Dr. Lassane.
Dr. Cash, Mr. Johnson, members of the board, you've had the opportunity to review the August updates to the personnel report. Are there any questions?
Just happened to notice. I know the spelling usually doesn't make any difference, but I think Miss Torrealba, the third one down on the list, that A and L has been transposed, isn't it?
Yes.
You want that to be?
I believe so. I would have to look at her actual name, but I'll be glad to correct that and get a revision to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Are we going to vote on these as a whole? That's generally the process, unless you have a specific item you want to bring.
After our discussion of the last meeting, I would like to table the approval of administrative positions until we see contracts that we have discussed. I'd like to make a motion to table the approval of administrative transfers and administrative hires.
I'm not sure that actually needs a motion. I think a board member can make that request without a motion. Am I correct in that, Mr. McMillan? I think the board member can make a request that we table any of these personnel items and then discuss that at a later time.
I don't exactly know the answer to that question, but it would seem to me that if we removed, I think generally the board member can remove it from the consent agenda and make it an agenda item, I believe, and then I guess it would be handled as a regular agenda item.
All right, well, let's do that. We'll move it off the consent agenda, and we will, when we vote on the consent agenda, then, if I'm understanding you correctly, we approve all but the administrative transfers, is that?
And
Which,
administrative hires and transfers.
you're talking, I mean, just so I'm clear, you're talking about the very last section.
Yeah, I do not, we have no straight hires in this one, is that correct?
They were all internal on this particular report. There were
we're just gonna
no
talk about
straight-out new administrative hires, is
No,
what I
no
think you're
new-
asking.
That's perfectly fine for me. Since you've not properly introduced the motion, I will rescind my motion if I can get a. Rescind the second. Rescind in the second. Okay.
Okay, so we're okay moving ahead then with,
Yes, sir, we just need, we're gonna pull this out and put it in consent agenda, is that correct?
put it in the non-consent, you mean?
I mean, non-consent.
Okay, all right,
Okay, very good.
okay. So
Thank
we'll
you.
move that down and then move that to the first item under the non-consent agenda.
Well, let me clarify then something here. And we've done this one time before, the idea that if we have the personnel committee meeting or the personnel report given to us at the CAL meeting, that if there's a question about anything on here, that is to be brought to the administration and to Ms. Lassane at that time so that it can be pulled off before this meeting, not at this meeting, but before this meeting, so that it doesn't even show up. I mean, that was what we've been doing, and that's what we outlined at a meeting, is either last month or the month before, whatever. So just as a clarification, if you're going to take something off of this, it needs to be done at the CAL meeting or at least before we meet this evening. That's really the proper way.
So you're telling. Correct. Yes, don't. It may be proper, but it's not. We discussed this at the meeting of the committee of the whole. I thought our understanding was did we not ask for having contracts, Mr. Johnson?
I think you did, and the staff said that we need a little bit of time to pull that together. And we was planning to bring those to you in September at the CAL meeting. That's the way I recall that.
Mr. Johnson, I made notes that that was for the September CAL meeting.
And my motion is to table this, and this is an official meeting of this board, and I believe you can ask Mr. McMillan, do I have the right to make motions in this meeting?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I think that's the idea of taking it off the consent agenda and putting it on as an item to consider for the board.
So that is proper.
I think you have a right to make a motion, yes?
Thank you.
So while we're discussing this, I'm kind of caught off guard here. I think what, as I understand, we will do then is finish the consent agenda items, then bring this item up on the agenda tonight, because if we hold a complete month without discussing it, certain business of the school system will be delayed getting done. So we will bring this back up under the non-consent agenda as the first item, have this, Mr. Page, since he asked to have it removed, have him bring up the items on here that he has specific questions about. We can discuss these as we properly can do in an open meeting, assuming it does not involve specific items that would require a closed session about an individual. And then we can have motion, either vote up or down, whether these are proper tonight. Is that proper? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. That's what we'll do then, if everybody understands.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments about the personnel portion of the consent agenda? If not, we also have the minutes from July 7th Committee of the Whole and the minutes from the July 14th Board of Education meeting. If I don't hear any corrections or additions to those minutes, I'll entertain a motion to accept the items on the consent agenda with the exception of the administrative transfers and the minutes from, and to also approve the minutes from the July meetings. So moved. Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Not all in favor of those, of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We have no recognitions on the agenda tonight, so we'll now move into the non-consent agenda. So we will bring up as our first item the approval of administrative transfers and ask for specific remarks.
Mr. Chairman, I move we table the administrative transfers until the board members can see a contract consistent with the North Carolina School Board Association requirement that we do so. And to table it till the September Cal meeting.
Have a motion, is there a second to that motion? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now, time for discussion.
No, sir, this is not discussable. Point of order.
Why would it not be discussable? Any motion comes up for discussion after it's seconded by other board members.
Motion to table is not discussable.
Correct.
No debate.
That's correct, under Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay. All right. Well, understanding then, if we vote in favor of this motion, we will have delays.
I'm sorry, Chairman, you're out of order. There's no discussion on this motion.
Okay. All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
No,
That motion,
whichever.
okay, that motion carries, or the motion actually is declined 4-3.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're not tabling this, so now we need to discuss the approval of administrative transfers. Do we have other discussion, or is there a motion to approve these individually or collectively?
I make a motion that we approve this report.
Okay. All right, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the administrative transfers. All those in favor of the motion, please.
This
say
is a discussable motion, Chair.
aye. Okay, yes, sir. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir. I'd like to say that according to North Carolina School Board Association, if we're going to do this by a sheet of paper like this, we must have this information, including salaries, available to hand out to the public tonight in order to approve this. If this board approves it, I think we are breaking the open meetings law as was explained to us. But I'm ready to put it to a vote.
Any other discussion?
Just to clarify her motion, I know but it says make it approval of administrative transfers, item E, so he'll know it's on, that's the item that we were talking about. Her motion's great, but I'm just saying, just to clarify, that's okay. Sure. Item E, approval of administrative transfers, so we know which one it is. No question.
Let me be clear. In the past, did the Board of Education approve these administrative contracts without looking at the contracts?
Yes, we had the contracts available to us to look at if we wanted to see specific detail, and then the contracts were signed after they were approved.
So who on the board tonight has viewed the contracts? I know I haven't.
Dr. Cash, can I just clarify that what this personnel report is about the transfer of the individual? Per our discussion, the contracts we were bringing in September. And so you really have two separate parts there, and I don't know if Mr. McMillan can speak to this, but as far as what's on here is just a transfer of that individual from one position to the next.
Is there any change in salary with any of these people?
There is.
Okay, then it's a modification of a contract, and that has to be presented at the time we approve it. But I'm happy for Mr. McMillan to rule on it, so we can move on.
I'll ask Mr. McMillan to make any comments. We certainly, as a board, want to follow the law. I don't know whether there's a provision to have these transfers made without changes in specific salaries until we can review them in September. And then, if it involved an increase in salary, make that retroactive at the time they're approved, to cover this time frame, or how is the best way to handle this. But I know that we need as a board not to put the school system in jeopardy of having these positions filled, properly by the time school opens. And our meeting in September obviously comes after the opening of school.
I would be happy, and I think all of us would be, if there was an amendment made to this motion simply to state this would be confirmed in at the board meeting in next month. I mean, in September. I'm not against any of this transfers. I'm just wanting us to do it correctly.
Well, let me add there then. I know it's all different, and I know it's all new, but this was actually covered since y'all have been here. The idea that when we get this personnel report and you look at it and you have any question whatsoever, then tell somebody during the week between the first meeting and the second meeting so that they can make the adjustment before this meeting comes up. So, and I know your questions about
We
the
discussed
contract.
this at the Cal meeting, and
No,
I
we
think
didn't,
I
we
was...
didn't say anything about, no, Mr. Page, you didn't say anything about the contracts at that time. That's the same heading. It's the same heading. So if we didn't pick up on it and you picked up on it, what you should have done is to go to Ms. Lassane or to somebody who is dealing with the personnel and say, I have a problem with this coming before the regular board meeting, before the contracts. So bring the contracts or take this off until next time.
My understanding was this was going to be done in September.
Well, then we can do it in September.
Well, in an effort not to hold up these transfers, if I made an amendment to say that we will approve these contingent on seeing the contracts, that would be sufficient?
Dr. Cash, may I ask for some clarification, because there are two things from Monday night. The contracts was a separate conversation, and Ms. Haynes asked specifically about qualifications of candidates. And so, just to make sure that we're clear as to what it is that is desirable, if we could make that distinction also, that would be helpful for staff.
It's got nothing to do with qualifications. As far as I was concerned, you've turned them in. I certainly, we hire you to make sure that you're qualified. That's not a problem. I'm just trying to make sure that we meet what we were told in our class was what we legally had to do to approve contract administrators to fulfill the obligation that we have under the open meetings laws. I don't have any problem with anybody on here, so, again, just trying to make sure we protect ourselves and do things properly. I'm fine with the amendment, but, I mean, because I agree with you, we need to do this. I'll second the amendment.
Well, I don't want to put the board in jeopardy, and that's why.
Motion.
Yeah, I mean, as far as legalities, I don't want to put us in jeopardy. Therefore, to get past this, I would accept a friendly amendment to my motion.
Well, we have the original motion to table this till.
That was gone.
September.
That's gone. That was defeated, so that's history.
That's defeated.
Yeah.
The next motion was
Some-
to pass it with
yeah.
an amendment that you're adding to it. So whoever made that motion needs to be the one to accept the amendment.
We got a second on the floor, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
We can vote on the second.
Let's clarify the motion, though.
Okay.
So everybody
That's what I was
understands. Because the motion was made, and I honestly don't remember who made it.
I did.
All right,
I made the motion that we make a approval of the administrative transfers contingent on being able to see the contracts at our September CAL meeting? Is that sufficient?
Mr. Kelly had seconded the original motion you made. Correct. That, and so if you're okay with the amendment, Mr. Kelly?
Sure.
Okay, then is there any discussion at that point, after clarification? If not, all those in favor of this motion, then please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And that, we just approved the amended motion, correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yes. So we approve these administrative transfers contingent upon review of the contracts in September.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you all, board members, for helping us clarify and keep on board. You all have been most recently attendants of that School Board 101, and it serves to remind us all how business is best done. So a word to all of us. Next, let's move on into the approval of these second readings. We have Dr. Miller, item A, approval of facilities use policy, and this will require a vote.
Yes, sir. Thank you to the board and Dr. Cash, Mr. Johnson. At your place, I think, is the edited or the additional policy clarifications that we were requested to put on there. Mr. McMillan has reviewed it, and everything seems to be in order. I would recommend that we accept the policy as written. Be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions about facilities use policy? Comments?
Motion to approve.
Second, please.
Have a motion and a second to approve the approval of facilities use policy. Any discussion?
The only thing I say is good job
Yeah.
putting that
Thank you.
together.
Thank you.
By the way, I sent an electronic copy to the board members. Did you get that? Okay.
No other discussion. We'll have a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion
Thank you.
carries. Thank you.
Pass on to your committee there, Dr. Miller, pass on to your committee that helped you with your rules, how much we appreciate them. 'Cause
Yes,
you
sir. That was
used
an
a lot of
excellent group.
volunteers. You had a lot of
Excellent group.
volunteers help you. Thank you.
Next, I have Mr. Armstrong come up to discuss these next several policies. First is item B, policy number 3225/4312/7320, technology responsible use.
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong.
Dr. Cash, members of the board, Mr. Johnson, we're here for the second reading of the technology responsible use policy. This revision adds some updates to the use policy, provides a way for staff to use wireless without personal devices as long as it has our management software installed on the device. Make a motion. I'd like to see if we could get it approved tonight.
Any discussion? Not hear a motion to approve the technology responsible use policy.
I make that
Motion.
motion.
First, second, whatever.
Yeah, go ahead, and I'll second.
I'll make the motion that we accept this.
Okay. Bond seconded. Any discussion?
I'd like to mention that I have a really strong feeling that sooner or later, this is going to come up really big because we're going to have people that want to use their own personal devices. And I'm glad to see that we have software that we can put on those that can help us with our evaluations. Okay?
Thank you.
Other discussion or comments? Not all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, that motion carries. Okay, next we'll move on to the internet safety, policy number 3226/4205.
Okay, for this policy, attached are the policy revisions suggested by the North Carolina School Board Association. Revisions adds the requirement for students and employees to notify a designated school official if they believe the internet filter is failing to block inappropriate material. This is a second reading. Ask for approval.
Questions or discussion? If not, we have a motion to approve the internet safety policy. Is there a second?
Second.
We have motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Next, we'll move on to the network security policy number 6524.
Okay. This policy, the revisions update terminology and changed NCWIS to Student Information System. It adds requirement to control and manage access to information technology systems and other minor and reference changes. This is the second reading of this. Would like to get this approved.
Any questions or comments? Hear a motion for approval.
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next, we'll go to policy number 4250/5075/7316, North Carolina Address Confidentiality Program.
Okay. Thank you. This North Carolina Address Confidentiality Program basically will help the board provide a work and school environment free from violence or the threat of violence against employees, students, or other persons. The board encourages eligible individuals to participate in the North Carolina Address Confidentiality Program established pursuant to Chapter 15C of the General Statutes. This program basically protects the address of relocated victims of domestic violence, sexual offense, stalking, or human trafficking to prevent a victim's assailants or potential assailants from finding the victim through the public records. This is the second reading for this policy. We'd like to get it approved tonight.
Any comments or discussion? Not, hear a motion for approval.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, that motion carries. Next, we have the policy number 9220, security of facilities.
Okay, this policy adds new statutory information about providing local law enforcement with schematic diagrams of school facilities and keys to the main entrances of school facilities. It also includes emergency management agencies and the above required schematic diagrams. Basically, making everything schematic, everything to scale that we provide for law enforcement. I'd like to get this approved.
Comments or questions about the security of facilities? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I make the motion that we approve it.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion
Okay,
carries.
thank you.
Mr. Armstrong. Next, ask Ms. White to come forward on policy number 6420, contracts with the board. This is, again, a second reading and requires a vote.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening. I bring forth tonight the second reading of policy 6420, contracts with the board. We request that the threshold for approval of contracts be moved from $50,000 to $90,000. This puts that in alignment with the threshold for formally bidding, which is in policy 6430. I have received no public comments on this policy change.
Comments or questions regarding policy 6420? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Okay, have a motion. Is there a second? Okay, have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, then policy number 6430, state purchasing requirements for equipment, materials, and supplies.
Yes, sir, this is also a second reading. This policy change is necessary because it does reference at one point in that policy the threshold for board approval of contracts. So since policy 6420 has now been approved to move that threshold to 90,000, we need to also change 6430 to be in alignment with 6420. Again, this is a second reading. I've had no public comments on the proposed policy change.
Any comments or questions regarding policy 6430? If not, entertain a motion to approve it.
I make that motion, we approve it, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
That motion carries. Thank you. Okay, this comes to time for our public comment. We had one speaker signed to speak to us tonight, Mr. Frank Rader.
Thank you and good evening, and thank you for all the work that you do. This, I guess, is the first announcement of the formation of a political referendum committee, which is the technical term. You're probably thinking political action committee, for a group of us to promote a yes vote on the school bonds. It is alive. It has a bank account at Blue Harbor Bank. It has 2 officers. Frank Rader is the treasurer, and I'm handling all the back office stuff, the accounting. David Honeycutt, vice president of Blue Harbor Bank from Troutman, is the assistant treasurer. David Coble, who's currently a commissioner in the town of Mooresville, is involved in most of the external projects. He's created a timeline about when things will be done and how. Mac Herring, also a commissioner from the town of Mooresville, is very actively engaged in it. Tomorrow, for example, there's a health symposium, 3 o'clock here in Statesville, and Dr. Tim Brewer will be involved in that, and Mac Herring will be involved. The formal name of the organization is Mooresville, taken from Mooresville Graded Schools, ampersand or and, Iredell, taken from Iredell-Statesville Schools, ampersand, and Mitchell College. So the formal name is Mooresville and Iredell and Mitchell, because those are our public schools. The short name we're using is My Schools First. The formal name is Mooresville, Iredell, Mitchell, My Schools First. The short name is My School First, and we're using the My as MI, like My Connection. We're using My Schools First as our bumper sticker name. That's the one the checking account is opened up in. That's the one you'll see on various things that we do logo-wise. First of all, we're inviting anyone that you know who is active in the schools to join us and use the materials that we're going to promote and publish. We're anticipating about $50,000 of revenue coming in that people have spoken toward. We're going to be targeting, we already have targeted lists of voters that we're going to be mailing to. There'll be at least 2 direct mail pieces all being laid out. So we exist. We're here to promote your programs, your bonds, and we'll be here at each of your meetings to answer any questions you have. I have 12 seconds remaining, so I'll shut up and see if there are any questions. Well, just remember the name, My Schools First.
Thank you. Mr. Rader's the only speaker that actually signed to come in. I'll ask, though, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to the board? If not, I'll move on to board member comments. Ms. Bonham.
Yesterday, we held our year-end review, and at the very end of the review session, There was a topic brought up regarding regarding the board resolution to support the school bonds that are coming up in November. The press was there, and I'm sure that in the paper, probably tomorrow, maybe Wednesday, there's going to be a lot of information in there that had to do with the opposition that one of our board members had regarding the bonds. And so I felt it prudent just to get some information out there, because I think I've got some facts here, and if you will allow me to just read my comments, I think it might clear up a lot of things regarding why these bonds were designed and how they were designed. Last night at the ISS Board of Education's year-end review, Superintendent Johnson had laid out news articles from past bond referendums, some that had passed and others that had failed. With any use of taxpayer money, there needs to be an open and honest discussion of where and how the money will be used, and here we are at this crossroads. The $151.5 million bond we are getting ready to vote on in November was designed as a critical needs-only bond. Mooresville Graded School District has 2 critical situations on their campus that require immediate attention. If the bonds were just Mooresville Graded School District projects, the face amount would be much smaller. But it is unlikely that those bonds would pass because of the relatively small geographic location of where the money is needed. I have heard Ken Robertson say so many times in the past that the reason government is inefficient and has a bad reputation is because it is forced to be fair. For this bond to be fair, ISS would have had to add on top of the cost that it had already had, the cost of a new high school, maybe another $50 or $60 million. Even though a new school would not be a critical need at this juncture. This would have incurred a 15% to 18% tax increase and would have never passed in Iredell County. It would just be further proof to the voters that public schools are always asking for money they really don't need. So instead, ISS added a moderate amount of critical needs projects to the bonds. In fact, we have needs that we have pushed down the road so far, they have a different zip code. We know we cannot continue to ignore these projects and hope they will go away. They will only get worse, and more projects will be exponentially added. Remember this, for ISS to get their proportional amount and have the money to take care of the Mooresville Graded School District gymnasium and auditorium, the bond would have had to have been so big and unpalatable to the Iredell taxpayer, it would never pass. And Mooresville Graded School District has no other funding sources to take care of their structural needs other than this referendum. I respect Mr. Page's passion for the taxpayers of this county. His major concern was he felt the Mooresville Graded School System was getting proportionately too much of the money. He felt our children were, in his words, getting the shaft, if you will. If you look at the bond in isolation, I may be inclined to agree with him. However, a capital project is a long-term project, and buildings are apt to last 30, 40, and 50 years. In the case of Mooresville High School that was built in the late 1940s, that's been nearly 75 years ago, and it has been a long time since major upgrades and renovations have been made. If we look at past and future bond proposals, the proportionality will fall back in line. In a couple of years, we will need that new high school. And not only that, but we will need the Mooresville constituency to support these bonds when that need is a critical need. Did Mooresville Graded School District spend capital money to fund their one-to-one learning initiative? That I don't know. But what they have done has been an amazing feat and has brought nationwide attention to this area. It's been good for commerce and the county economy. We now have a new term I've never heard before being thrown around. It's called education tourism. We have educators coming to conferences and for tours from everywhere in the United States, renting hotel rooms and spending money in Iredell County. 4 years ago, the African-American male subgroup in Mooresville High School had a graduation rate of 67%. That meant they were losing nearly a third of those kids to no easy futures. A stat you will need to consider is that now that subgroup of young men is graduating at 98%. Whatever Mooresville did to get that target group on track was a worthy cause. Who's to say that their investment wasn't put to where it was needed most? In the past, most bond projects were done per ADM, but there is no law that says this has to be. This year, it is Mooresville Graded School District's time to get big projects taken care of. In several years, it'll be our turn. And let's not overlook a major point of this bond either. This is basically a line of credit that does not have to be used if the county commission so deems it. The commissioners get to decide when and if the bonds are issued. If they don't approve the magnitude of the auditorium, they do not have to issue the money for it to be built. A compromise will have to be met. And if there is an economic downturn, the bonds may not be issued at all. The county commissioners hold all the cards. If we say that we are against this bond because Mooresville's proportion is too big, it's like saying, if I can't have 2 bottles of water, I don't want any water at all. If we are okay to tell the parents in Cool Springs, North Iredell, or South Iredell to wait another 5 years on their maintenance issues, then let's do nothing. Otherwise, I would ask that this board come together and support this bond, and for that reason, I would like to put on the table this resolution of the Iredell-Statesville Board of Education regarding the need for additional capital funding and supporting new sources of revenue for such purposes, and I'll pass copies down. I would like to make the motion that we accept this resolution.
We have a motion on the floor. Before I ask for the second, I'll give the board members a minute to look over this if they'd like. And then we'll entertain a second if and when any board member would like to make that second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the resolution supporting the capital funding bond referendum. I'll ask if there's any discussion.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. First off, I'd like to make perfectly clear, I'm absolutely for a bond issue. We need a bond issue bad. Iredell-Statesville School's got some school needs that are tremendously important. And I do have a problem with this bond because I truly believe every student in Iredell-Statesville School is as important as every student in Mooresville School. No more so, but equally important. Now I'm going to read some facts into the record, and for the press, I'll be glad to give them a copy of this afterwards. If I'd known we were going to get into discussion tonight, I would have brought copies. There's a history in Iredell County of bonds. In 1997, they passed a $22.2 million general obligation bond. It was divided up $18.2 million to Iredell-Statesville Schools, 82%, $4.1 million, 18%. This was based closely on ADM, but the figures are rounded so that projects can be completed. 2005, there was a $50.7 million general obligation bond. $36.4 million, 72% went to Iredell-Statesville. $8.3 million, 28% went to Mooresville. In 2008, we had a $108 million COPS, in which Iredell-Statesville received 75%, $80.9 million. Mooresville received $25.7 million, or 25%. Again, all these figures based closely on ADM, but rounded off so projects could be completed. All these figures come from Ms. Robinson and County Finance Officer Susan Robinson and County Manager Ron Smith. If we look at capital funding for this county, it's a pretty simple formula. Part of the sales tax goes to systems divided by ADM, state law. Part of the county property tax is based strictly on the tax value in each district. Tax value in Iredell-Statesville Schools tax district is 84.45% of the total county tax value. Mooresville Graded School District has a 15.55% of the total tax value. So basically, Iredell-Statesville Schools is supposed to receive 84.45% of any money based on property tax, and Mooresville will receive 15.55%. If you average that together, last year, ISS received 82% of all capital funding in the county. Mooresville received 18%. This is the way it's always been done in Iredell County. Let's look at the bond that's proposed in Ms. Bonham. It's a $153.5 million bond. This is what they've told me. Looking at the history of the capital funding, it's always been based either on ADM or property values. If we were to divide this up based on ADM, ISS would get 78% and $119.7 million, and Mooresville will get 22%, $33.8. If we use a capital funding formula based on property tax, which this bond is being based on, ISS would get 84%, $128.9 million, Mooresville would get 16%. The actual division of the bond as it's proposed today is 52%, $79.5 million going to ISS, and $74 million, 48% going to Mooresville Graded School District. Now, let's look at that per child. That is $3,801 per child for Iredell-Statesville schools. It is $12,656 per child for students in the Mooresville Graded School District. That is over 3.3 times more money per student for Mooresville. I'm sorry, our children in the Iredell-Statesville schools are worth exactly what the children are in Mooresville schools. They're not worth a penny more, they're not worth a penny less, they're worth the same amount. That's just bottom line. Skip over a little bit. Let's look at phases. Mooresville gets, in the first phase, 76%, and we get 24%. In the second phase, Mooresville gets 63%. We only get 37%. It's not till the third phase that we get most of our money. Now, what's the real need? I will be the first one to say Mooresville High School is a real need. Mooresville High School deserves and needs to be fixed. My wife teaches there. I've been in that school many, many times. Now, do I think Mooresville has not spent what they could have spent? You know, we're not going to go there on this. I can discuss that later. I've got the facts and figures on that also, but let's not. Let's just look at the need. Mooresville has an almost new middle school, and today it has 461 empty seats. 451 seats. Now, that's from optimum capacity, not maximum. Mooresville uses the figure of optimum capacity, where we tend to, I think, you generally use maximum capacity because that's where we're at. If they use the maximum capacity, they have 853 empty seats today. And that school's almost new. Go down and look at it. Now, if we use their last 10-year growth rate, it's 3.2% a year. That's probably high because their growth rate last year, Mooresville City Schools' growth rate last year was 0.5%. But we'll use their 10-year average of 3.2%. In the year 23-24, 10 years from now, they will still have 119 empty seats below optimum capacity and 511 empty seats below maximum capacity. These numbers come from Mooresville, by the way. Now, let's look at Iredell-Statesville schools, middle schools. Brawley and Statesville Middle are probably the two oldest middle schools in the county. From what I gathered, they're over 50 years old. Now, when we talk about replacing our middle schools, what we're talking about doing is building 2 new middle schools at a much lower cost than Mooresville's $32 million middle school. We're also moving our IB students to our existing middle schools. Then we're moving, the talk is to move one of our special schools, Monticello, over to Northview. So in total, we're actually improving 5 schools. We're adding hundreds of seats. Somewhere between, this whole bond, we're going to add somewhere between 1,400 and 1,550 seats.
There's no need, Mooresville does not need that $32 million middle school. I agree. I think we ought to look at needs. If you want to call needs, let's call needs. They won't, that's not needed. There's no possible way they need that. You can look at the figures. So yes, I am against this bond as it's being presented because I personally feel, and I've talked with a lot of other people, that it's probably against our North Carolina Constitution and against our general statutes. General statutes 115C-1. A general and uniform system of free public schools shall be provided throughout the state, wherein equal opportunity shall be provided for all students. Equal opportunity shall be provided for all students. People, that is a state law. Let's look at the North Carolina Constitution. Article 9, Section 2, 1. General and uniform system term, the General Assembly shall provide taxation and otherwise for a general and uniform system of free public schools, which shall be maintained at least 9 months in every year, and wherein equal opportunity shall be provided for all students. Let's go to Section 2, Part 2, power of taxation. The power of taxation shall be exercised in a just and equitable manner for public purposes. Just and equitable. Both the North Carolina Constitution and the North Carolina General Statutes require all taxation and spending on public schools to be fair and equitable for all students. So I really think if this ends up in court, we could lose everything. The sad part is all this could have been avoided if Mooresville's graded schools and a member of our county commission had been just sit down with the Iredell-Statesville Board of Education and its administration and sit down and just had a logical, meaningful dialogue. I'm sorry, I want our kids to get the fair share. I do not believe a child in North Iredell or South Iredell or Cool Springs or Celeste Hinkle is any more valuable than any student that lives in 28115. I stand up for our students. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I have one. I thought you, Mr. Chairman, mentioned to the board last week, a couple of weeks ago, that somebody said, and I believe it was you, that this resolution was not going to go ahead unless it was a unanimous. Did I hear wrong?
That was my opinion about what tactic goes. But as I said before, as chairman, I have one vote, I have one voice. If another board member comes up to me and asks that they want to be on the agenda to make a comment, then there's no time limit, as chairman, there's nothing I can do because I want each member of the board to have an equal opportunity to make any comments that's on their mind. I mean, that's what we're elected for. Ms. Bonham asked me if she could make comments tonight and asked to make this proposal. So she's got that right in my mind to do that.
No, I just understood it differently.
Yeah, I was stating my opinion.
And my purpose, honestly, was not to get, Mr. Page riled up and angry. I mean, it really was just to get some, just to give you some basic information of how this bond was designed. And I really do hope that, because there's no other way that we are going to be able to get these items funded. I mean, there's no plausible way of doing this, especially when we've got so many critical needs right now that we have put off for so long. When we do have to build this high school in a couple years, we're going to be looking at, are we going to build a high school, or are we going to do these critical needs, do these maintenance items? And I just, like I said, I didn't mean to, all due respect.
I'm not upset one bit. I just, stating the facts. I mean, I'm not, and I am actually glad to see that, that the board's, you know, bringing it out to the public and talking about it. I appreciate you coming out and let's discuss it. I think that's how things get settled. For way too long, we felt this board's not argued enough, and maybe it's, you know, no, I hope you don't think I'm upset. I'm not at all. I'm just passionate about our students. I'm just passionate that we have to be fair. Now, I do believe this bond could have been I actually believe this bond could have been done a lot differently if this board and this administration had stood up a little stronger. And that's my opinion. I still think we've got a lot of issues here, and I want our kids. We need these buildings. We need them badly. But we got to be fair to our children. We got to be fair to our taxpayers. And that's my biggest thing, is being fair to every child. And Mooresville they're high school. They need it. And nobody would argue about the high school. It's the problem I've got with the middle school. That's $32 million we could use to start on a high school. I mean, they don't need it. They can't prove they do. I mean, I got these. It's just not there. So that's where the holdup's at. I still don't.
My feeling is, I hope you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater because of the, you know, what appears to you to be something that is unfair and inequitable. Yeah, you know, if we could wave a magic wand and get all the money that we want to do all the things that we want, you know, it would be proportional.
If they didn't have a $32 million in there, I think everybody would stand there and we'd all be dancing the street with each other and this bond would pass. My question right now, I'm going to be honest, for my constituents, I'm hearing it's running way against the bond. I mean, when you start talking about a 12% tax increase, I think you probably could have pulled a $32 million out and had a lower bond and everybody could live with that. I think that was probably a doable bond. And you know, the nice things, the taxpayers are, I mean, they're the ones the voters are going to get to make the decision. We're not going to make the decision. I do wish we would have fought for a better, fought for our kids. I mean, we can't give, a child in Mooresville's not worth 3.3 times more money than a child in North Iredell. And I mean, how are you going to justify to a child at South and North that we're going to build them a 600-seat or 750-seat auditorium, and we're going to build the children in Mooresville a 1,800-seat, humongous, 55,000 square foot or 48,000 square foot auditorium that's going to be the talk of the entire county. I mean, how do you justify giving one student more than a knowledge just because of the zip code they live in?
I call for question on the resolution.
Okay. We have a call for question. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Let's have a show of hands to make sure I heard correctly. So 4, all those opposed? 3. Okay, the motion carries to proceed with the resolution with a vote 4-3.
What was the vote again?
4-3.
4-3.
I would like to make one point for clarification regarding the board's function on this issue prior to the election of the new members coming on the board, just so the media has, I think, full side of the story. And I say this primarily because I want this board to respect each other. I want us to have healthy dialogue, exercise our differences of opinion, and while maintaining respect. And I appreciate that across the board. I also want this board, it's my goal to show respect for other boards in the county that we encounter and work with. One being the Mooresville Graded School District Board of Education, and one being the Iredell County Commission that I'm speaking about tonight. I want to be really careful that the media, and again, I can't speak for every member on here, I would just like to make an appeal to our own board that we be careful about making statements about the appropriate request by another board regarding its own needs, because I feel we would all personally be offended if another board came and made comments and told us and tried to make rules or recommendations about what our needs are when they're not here, exercising the part of the discussion and seeing all the details of what our board is considering. At the same time, I respect the county commission's right to provide funding in a way they see appropriate per our request. I've been told by different chairmen of the Board of Commissioners over the course that I've spent on the school board that it was the duty of the school board and role of the school board to provide a request for funding, request for resources as we saw fit. It was the duty and role of the county commission to respond by either granting those funds by whatever means they felt necessary or not to provide those funds based on what information they had and what they seemed necessary. So we are working with the Board of Commissioners, but we work at the discretion of their funding toward us. So when this issue came up, after we as an Iredell-Statesville School Board had presented our needs to the County Commission every year, but especially regarding capital needs over the past 2 years by meeting with individual county commissioners and with them collectively in meetings where we discussed our budget and our needs. We had been asking specifically for a bond referendum to consider this if the county didn't have appropriate funding to do it on their own. We had not been able to achieve that goal. When this issue came up most recently, we were asked by the County Commission to provide our list of 5 most critical needs. We provided that in good faith. The County Commission then, at their own discussion in their own way, brought forth a proposal to us with essentially 48 hours to respond. So we made our best response, not necessarily agreeing that it was the very best option out there. I think discussion would have been better had it been done, but that was not an option to us. So we exercised a decision, based on the information we had, trusting that the County Commission will review those requests both by us and by the Mooresville Grady School District, and if any adjustments need to be made as time goes on, as this referendum comes forth, or even after the vote, as it's been said, it's my understanding the County Commission still holds the final decision about what funds will be released, if they're still available at that time. So I hope that helps clarify our position in terms of making the decisions that we made prior to the most recent school board election. So we basically work with the information we have at the time. It's not always ideal information, but it's working with what we have in terms of trying to maintain respect for all boards concerned.
Well, just I'd like to be clear on that you can't have anything but the highest respect for Mooresville school system. Dr. Edwards, I mean, anybody in education has got to just look up to that group. I agree with Ms. Bonham. They have done a tremendous job down there. And there's absolutely no disrespect meant to anything with Mooresville Grady School System or the county commissioners. I'm just looking at the facts. And, I just don't think it's fair. It's a fair deal. And I believe a couple of other board members made that statement yesterday. So that's all I got to say.
All right, well, thank you. I guess at this point, we'll turn it over to superintendent comments, Mr. Johnson.
Thanks, Dr. Cash, members of the board.
Did they vote on that motion?
Yes, sir.
They did vote?
You did vote.
Yes, 4-3. 4-3 in favor of the resolution.
I called for question, and
They voted on the question, but did they vote on the main motion?
can you vote on question?
Well, if someone calls the question, I guess.
I don't
that-
think,
They just went on and voted.
You just went ahead and voted on the main motion? Okay,
Motion, not the question, yes, sir.
okay, good. I misunderstood. Make sure you got it in the record.
Right. I'd like to take my time tonight to reference our book that we have studied this summer with our administrators. And many of you have read this and had an opportunity to hear Mr. Vollmer. The title of the book, again, is Schools Cannot Do It Alone. And I'm particularly interested in the section where he gives some advice to all educators. And the thing that really caught my attention, he said these are 5 things that you can do immediately to improve public education in our nation and in our state and community, and they don't cost a dime. And so here they are, according to Mr. Vollmer. Step number one, he calls these the 5 S's. Shift your attention to the positive. And he goes on to say that if we constantly choose to focus on negative things that occur in our classrooms, our schools, our district, our community, then we become more negative. Our psychology degrades, optimism fades, impatience and intolerance grows. Our relationships suffer. We have less energy. Our health declines. By the end of the school year, we'll find ourselves questioning our purpose and doubting our values. Those who dwell on the negative are prime candidates for burnout. So again, he challenges us to focus on the positive. Step number 2, he's pretty plain spoken here. He says, stop bad-mouthing each other in public. His comment is, in part, I know many educators that are shell-shocked and angry. They are appalled by their working conditions. They're bitter about the lack of respect that they receive from students, parents, and the public. Millions resent being forced to raise America's children. They hate the hypercritical environment that surrounds them and the cynics who stoke the flames. They have reason to complain, but venting in public is a nasty, destructive habit that hurts everyone and solves nothing. Step 3 is share something positive within your realm of influence. Mr. Vollmer mentioned to me that he was a student of Norman Vincent Peale and had read The Power of Positive Thinking many times, and commented that our positive comments and stories permeate public awareness. And he challenged us to make sure that we've always got something positive to say about the work that we do. Step number 4 was sustaining your efforts in this positive approach to doing business. He said that you need to sustain this until being positive becomes a habit. So you have to monitor yourself. And he said, if you have to, start off on Sunday night and just take 2 or 3 minutes and reflect on how positive you were the week before and set some goals for the upcoming week. How many positive comments or stories did you share about the work that you do? The 5th and final S was start now. Don't put it off. Begin the process right now. So I'm going to model what we read in our book study by sharing some positive comments within my realm of influence. The first thing that I would like to comment on that's very positive in my world is that as we kick off this school year, this board has made some courageous decisions to balance this budget and live within the means that are given to us by the federal, state, and local governments. And over the last couple of years, we've had some very challenging obstacles to overcome. In years 2012 to 13, we were forced as a school system to use $2.5 million that year in fund balance. In 2013-14, we used almost $2.1 million in fund balance. And I'm happy, I think this is positive, that as we kick off this school year, we're probably going to use less than $500,000 in fund balance. So that fund balance usage has declined drastically, and I think that's very, very positive. Here's something else that's positive in my day. We received notice the other day that our child nutrition program is profitable for the 2013-14 school year. So that's going to allow us as a school system now to charge our child nutrition program indirect costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $650,000 to $700,000. And that will be money that we can apply to help us balance our local budget. Here's something else that's positive that's happened. Teachers did get a raise this year. And it wasn't as fair and as equitable as we would like for it to have been, but it is the first major pay increase that these folks have seen in a long, long time. And I'll tell you something else that's positive. Yesterday at our retreat, you guys gave us the green light to research how we can use our local funding to see if we can offset the inequities in this raise by bringing forth a proposal to you of can we increase our local supplement and help out our classified employees that were not treated fairly in that state raise. So I'm very positive about that. Another very positive thing that's happened in my realm of influence was I attended new teacher orientation today. And I saw a room, I'd say approximately 90 people were in that room today. Young people, older people, folks that are brand new to the profession, folks that are transferring and coming back. At the break, I had 4 people come up to me, and they were former employees of Iredell-Statesville School that had left us, gone to work in other school systems for more money, and they came back to us and said, boy, I learned my lesson the hard way, and I'm really glad to be back in ISS. There were 4 of those folks approached me today. I'm also really positive about Leadership Academy Week, which we held last week. We do that always the first week in August. Generally, Leadership Academy Week is a pretty intensive week for our administrators. And this year, Dr. Lassane and the folks in HR had recommended that we try to de-stress our folks a little bit and take a more humane approach to that week. So we did that. We took Friday off and went up to Appalachian. And I got this email this morning from one of our principals, and I'll just read a part of it to you. I just wanted to say thank you for the great day Friday at ASU. The beginning of the school year is usually a stressful time, and there is always a lot of anxiety, especially after Leadership Academy Week. During Friday's activities, I was able to talk with a lot of my new colleagues that I typically do not talk with much. Our team building activities, our conversations, and our shared vision really helped strengthen a lot of relationships. It also personally energized me and helped me be even more excited about the beginning of a new school year. So I took that as a very positive day. I think another thing that's very positive is, and given the lively discussion that we had yesterday and today, is the democratic process is alive and well in Iredell County. And there is going to be a bond referendum put before the citizens of our community. I think that's a celebration. You know, democracy is the best form of government in the nation, in the world. And so the democratic process is going to be exercised in our community come this November. That's positive. That is a celebration for all of us. Likewise, this Board of Education is positive. Now, we've got new blood on this board. And some people would say, well, gosh, things have changed. And they have. But I think things have changed for the better. Our new board members bring a whole new dynamic and a whole new sense of energy to our board. And in the long run, this is going to be good for our school system and good for our kids. You mark my word on that. Here's something else positive. We've been in school really a week already because last Tuesday, VPAC and CCTL students returned. I haven't visited VPAC yet, but I did go by CCTL on the day of opening. And what I saw that day certainly encouraged me. It re-energized my enthusiasm for the beginning of the school year because I saw about 350 high-energy, very excited teenagers And the majority of them, and I asked a lot of them, were very excited about being back in school. And as a community, my goodness, what a celebration that we can offer not one, but 2 early college experience to our community. Here's something else to be real positive about, the Impact Grant. Our school system was one of a handful across the nation to win a major award from the Department of Education. And I tell you, without that funding, we would not be doing 2 critically important pieces of work. One is blended learning. Blended learning is truly about innovating education at the classroom level. It is about customizing and individualizing the learning experience for every child. What parent does not want that to happen for their child? I certainly wish my children had had that experience. The second thing that is exciting is that as a school system, we're one of a handful of systems now in our state that will have the capacity to do a one-to-one initiative. So every middle school and high school child in this county, in our school system, will now have access to high levels of technology, and that is a true celebration. Another very positive thing that has happened to me in the last week is I have visited a lot of schools just to kind of check in, see how things are going. And when I walk into those buildings, the first thing that impresses me is at the majority of our buildings, you pull up to the front of the school, it looks very clean. The landscaping looks good. It's very inviting. Walk in the door, those floors are shiny. The building is clean. The building says welcome. And I think that's a great positive message to send to the parents and the kids as they come back to school. Our custodial staff has been slashed, but those guys are still getting the job done. And I think that's a huge celebration for us. And as you visit more and more schools, you do pick up on that sense of excitement and energy that's starting to permeate the air, expecting our kids to return. Here's another positive thing, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday. The public schools of North Carolina are celebrating their 175th year of service to the citizens of this state. And Iredell-Statesville Schools plays a big part of that. I love the slogan that has been chosen to celebrate this birthday. The public schools truly are every child's chance and our community's future. You can't argue with that. And there isn't another learning institution that can say that. Private schools can't say that. Charter schools can't say that. Parochial schools can't say that. Only the public schools can say every child, regardless of your zip code, regardless of who your mom and dad is. I couldn't be more proud than to have devoted my career to public education. I do think it's one of the bedrocks of our democracy, and it's one of the cornerstones of a strong economy. And then finally, I received an email over the weekend. This is from the League of Innovative Schools. And I wonder sometimes how these folks hear about us, but they have invited us to put in an application to participate in a national conference about innovation. And so I had responded to them, and we are a finalist now. And phase 2 is for us to go through a series of oral interviews to see if we'll be accepted into this League of Innovative School Systems. So this is my attempt to practice what Mr. Vollmer has encouraged all of us to do with the 5 S's. And those are the positive things that are going on in my realm of influence. And board members, I'm going to try to be a good practitioner of this until that positive approach permeates me. So I'll be practicing this throughout the school year, reminding everybody on a weekly basis of all of the positive that I know to tell about our school system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Well, that concludes our agenda for the meeting tonight. We do not have any items for closed session. So at this point, I'll just have you refer to the announcement portion at the bottom with some important upcoming dates. August 19th to 22nd are teacher work days. August 25th is the first day of school for students. September 1st will be a Labor Day holiday. September 2nd, on Tuesday, that particular month, we'll have our Committee of the Whole meeting. So I want to note that change for the public, that the Committee of the Whole meeting will be on Tuesday, September 2nd, so that everyone can celebrate the Labor Day holiday. So that meeting will be at 5 p.m. at the ADR Education Center. And then on September 8th, the following Monday, the Board of Education meeting here at 6 p.m. at the Iredell County Government Center. At this point, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
1 second, Mr. Chairman. We're getting ready to start a new school year before our next meeting, and we have all of our administrators, good luck, but we have 3 here tonight, Dr. Taylor, Mr. Armstrong, and excuse me, Susie, who all 3 are taking on big roles this year. And I just want to say good luck to you, and all our administrators, good luck, but you 3 are in a new position this year, so good luck.
I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thursdays.